Um, I am Laura Morales. I am the program manager here at Women Food and Agriculture Network. Um, and hopefully you're in the right place. This is the How to Find a Customer Base, Creative Marketing and Revenue Streams for Farmers Learning Circle. Um, and it's being presented by Women Food and Agriculture Network in congruence with our Harvesting Our Potential mentorship program, um, which I will talk a little bit about right now. Like I said, I'm Laura Morales. I'm the program manager at WFAN. I do manage the Harvesting Our Potential mentorship program, which is a program that pairs new and beginning women and non-binary farmers up with more experienced farmers to learn a variety of different things. Um, just basically whatever they're looking to learn in the agricultural industry. We've got so many different mentors that you can pretty much learn just about anything that you're looking to learn. Um, okay, so let's go ahead and okay, sorry, forgot to mention. If you need any help at any point, please look for someone with WFAN next to their name. Those are other WFAN staff members. We have Stephanie, Piper, and Amy on this call as well, if you guys want to go ahead and wave. Um, and yes, let's go through our agenda really quick here. Again, welcome. Thank you for being here. Uh, look for people with WFAN next to your name if you need help. We are going to go through some community agreements and communication guidelines here in just a moment. Once we get through that, I'm going to go ahead and have our wonderful, amazing panelists introduce themselves. All of our panelists today are mentors in our Harvesting Potential mentorship program, and they do really amazing, great work, and they are wonderful teachers and have a wealth of knowledge about marketing and all things related to it. Um, Once we get through those introductions, we are going to open things up to discussion. How learning circles work is just open discussion, asking questions of one another, listening, and learning in that way. Um, and so we'll be taking questions in the chat throughout the event. If you have a question that you're just dying to ask, either put it in the chat or once we open the discussion up, please feel free to raise your hand, either physically or like use the hand raising feature on Zoom. After our discussion ends, we will have a brief survey for everyone to fill out. Um, that survey just lets us know if you had a great time today and any other things that you would like us to know about the event from your experience. Um, these surveys help us continue to secure funding for the program. Um, and if you do fill it out, you will be entered in a drawing to win one of our Stories of the Season zines that we just released in the last month or so. Really, really amazing, wonderful zine. So much great art and writing from other farmers and nature lovers alike. Um, and yes, once we're through that, we'll wrap it up and call it a day. So again, thank you so much for being here. Okay, so our community agreements. Um, Basically, these are just things that help us be accountable to one another and respectful to one another during an event like this. I think the biggest thing is to mute your mic if you're not speaking. And then also, if someone else is speaking, please do your best to not speak over them. Again, raise your hand if you have a question or you would like to contribute to discussion. Um, or if there's like a lull in discussion, maybe that's a great time to unmute and speak. Those are things to keep in mind. Let me get through this really quickly. No one knows everything. Together we know a lot. No one has all the answers, but together we know a lot of things. Move up, move up. If you tend not to speak a lot, use this as an opportunity to speak more. And if you do tend to speak a lot, maybe use this time to be more of a listener and fall into a listener role. That doesn't mean don't speak at all, just don't speak as much as maybe you normally would. Um, and with that up and up sort of mindset practice, we can see that there's growth happening. We can't all be articulate all of the time. That just means don't feel like you don't want to participate if you don't feel like you can like be succinct and know what you're saying. Just do your best. Um, and center a culture of care, lift each other up. Use this as an exercise of like building community. And I can't read the last one because my camera's in the way. Give me 1 second. Um, be in active inquiry. So, uh, be an active inquiry about how your identities and positions within hierarchies of privilege impact and influence this collective space. So just make sure you're making space for people and that you're being mindful about that space. All right, let's get into these introductions here. We are going to go ahead and kick things off with Linda. Linda, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am co-owner and operator of Prairie Birthday Farm in Clay County, Missouri, which is just north of Kansas City. It's 14 acres of peri-urban area. And we purchased this in 93 and it was terribly degraded. So we've built the soil and planted thousands of trees and shrubs and bushes. I originally started out growing food to feed the family. And as our two sons went into school land, I started growing more and then needed an outlet. So it wasn't like I had this all planned, it evolved. And luckily it worked. So we have lots of pollinators, dozens of flowers, fruits, herbs, lots of native fruits, and prairie herbs and flowers. And I primarily sell to chefs, or at least did prior to COVID. And of course, some of the restaurants closed then. And it's a great time for me to talk about finding markets because I need to find additional markets. And the farm is very diverse, and so are my offerings and customers. So in addition to selling food ingredients, I do classes and tours and events on farm. And my newest venture is an agrivoltaics solar array. So it's literally just up for 2 weeks now, and it's elevated so that I can do grow in raised beds underneath it. And I'm writing grants right now to conduct research on how things grow under solar panels. So part of what's going on here is climate change, and it's getting hotter. We had a severe drought last year. So I'm looking for ways to modify production and events to find ever growing and diverse income streams. So happy to answer those questions. I also come to this process as a nurse. So I taught nursing for 10 years, practiced in all different types of direct patient care. And one of the things the American Nurses Association wants us to do is to be role models and educators in nutrition and community health. And so I think, I've had three mentees in my first 2 years with the program, and I'm very grateful. They've been delightful. And I always learn as much as I share. It's a great opportunity to learn from each other. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Linda. That was an amazing introduction. Is Holly here? Did she make it? Holly? Okay. We'll move on to having Penny introduce herself. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Penny? Go for it.
Hello, thank you. I'm Penny Molina, she, her pronouns. I'm with Still Point Flower Farm, which is in Brooklyn, Wisconsin, which is about 25 miles south of Madison. I'm a WFAN mentor and delighted to be. I had 2 mentees this year and just had a wonderful time. On our farm, we grow flowers for a CSA. We also wholesale to florists, and we also are an agricultural tourism destination for weddings and community events. So we also make we do all the flowers for the weddings on our farm as well. So agricultural tourism is an important part of our business, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. We're a member of the Wisconsin Agricultural Tourism Alliance Association as well. So that's an important part of our business model. Also help our mentees start their own CSA business. So we had a wonderful mentee who wanted to really dig in, and we helped her with her business plans and all that kind of stuff. So that was wonderful. And I'm also a 40-year veteran of marketing. So I use my skills to help farmers create alliances. So we just recently created a small family farm alliance under a single brand, which was very helpful for them. They were all kind of all over the place trying to figure out how to do it themselves. And this alliance really helped them. So I can certainly help anybody that's interested in how to brand and how to find money to underwrite those brandings, seed monies, and we also got the Chamber of Commerce to underwrite things. So those are kind of the things that we're working on here at the farm. Just love having people out and sharing all of the skills that we have to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Penny. Okay, we're gonna have Ali go ahead and introduce herself. She also has an ebook that she offers through her farm, and we will have a discount code for everyone today if they choose to want to purchase one of those. Go ahead.
Hi. Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Ali Yahnke. I'm calling in from Omaha, Nebraska, where my family and I have a small farm. We farm on rented land and have been at our current location since 2017. Before that, I worked on several different market farms, and my now husband and I, before we got married, we lived in Iowa and ran a CSA program and had a market farm where we were selling at farmers markets and to restaurants. And when we moved off of that farm and to our current location, our land situation changed. So we had a lot less land. And so we decided to take a break from marketing through a CSA program, which for those of you not familiar stands for Community Supported Agriculture. So folks from the community can invest in the farm at the beginning of the season and then receive a share of produce throughout the growing season. It's a really great option for marketing, but it also requires you to be fully present for however long your CSA season lasts. So in our case, we were distributing for 20 weeks of this growing season, which is a lot of commitment. And when we moved to our current location, not only did we have less land, but we also had changing needs as a family. My partner Scotty and I got married right after we moved to our current location, and we were thinking about starting a family. And we didn't want to be committed to farmers markets every weekend or a CSA program that tied us to being home and managing a farm all year round and all season long. And so we had done some traveling and had encountered farm stands along the way, and were inspired by that as a possibility to market our goods in a way that was a little less time demanding, in the sense that we didn't have to manage a booth. We didn't have to prepare a set amount of produce every week for CSA customers, and we could really share whatever it is that we had, or however, we had a lot more flexibility, I guess you could say. At the same time, we have a website, and we were marketing some things through our online store. And so we saw that as an opportunity to distribute farm goods that weren't necessarily fresh vegetables at a farmer's market. And so we looked at starting some value added production. And so that is something that makes up a significant portion of our annual income. We currently make herb salts with herbs that we grow and source from local farmers, and different seasoning blends. And then we make a variety of other goods with things that we're growing or sourcing from farmers. So I guess we were asked to give like a nugget of inspiration. I think how we found success is that we found our voice. We found like what made us unique and what our interests were unique. And we found a way to like communicate that with our customers through the things that we're making and the way that we're marketing them. And that helped us to reach customers that are loyal to our brand because they share our values, and we've done our best to communicate the values that are at the foundation of our company, and at our production level. And I feel like that really happened for us in the last couple of years. We rebranded to the Perennial Homestead in 2020, and it kind of, from that point, helped us to articulate what we wanted to do more clearly and then reach our community. And it's been really incredible. Both my husband and I do this full time and have done so since 2020.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ali. I appreciate all of you for sharing and introducing yourselves. If you missed the slide, there is a link for Ali's ebook in the chat if you are interested. We're going to go ahead now and open things up to discussion. And let's see here. Do we have any questions to start? Stephanie, I might need your help with that one. Is there anybody have any questions they want to put in the chat or anything they want to ask of our panel?
As people were introducing themselves, I saw several people mentioned that they're interested in starting farm stands. So I wonder, Ali, if you could talk a little bit more about like what are some like top 3 or so tips and tricks that you might share for getting started?
Yeah. So we have an ebook that I wrote at the beginning of this year that outlines, it's like 40 pages of in-depth information. So that's, if you're really interested in that, that's linked in the chat. I would say, as with anything, each marketing outlet is going to have a different marketing strategy. So for our farm stand, it's located at the end of our driveway, and it has evolved a lot from the start. When we first started, we built a really ramshackle little stand on the back of a lawnmower trailer, and we were wheeling it in and out from our garage to the end of our driveway, like on the weekends. And suddenly this thing that we thought wouldn't be that much work was actually kind of a lot of work because we were having to move it, but we weren't really sure how it was going to be received. We had this natural fear of theft, which has not turned out to be a fear that needed to be validated because we haven't experienced that, thankfully. We started our stand in 2018, I should add. But yeah, our farm stand to begin with was really small, and we just creatively added to it as we grew our what we were growing and things. And every year we try to look at like, what are the things that make sense for us to grow? What are the spaces that make sense for us to expand into? And what things can we remove from our production? So our first year we grew as if we were going to a farmer's market, and we grew a lot of things that don't hold up very well on a stand. So our farm stand is exposed to the elements, and things are sitting out for longer periods of time based on what our hours are, which is, for us, it's sun up to sundown, and we have it open every day. But when we started, it was just the weekends. But even still, like at a farmer's market, you have a limited window, so you can keep things in coolers and you can restock as things are moving. But on a farm stand, it's not necessarily the same flow of traffic. And so you have to think about like, how are you displaying things so that they stay fresh for the duration of time that they're out there? So we pretty much don't grow any leafy greens for our farm stand, but things like potatoes, onions, garlic, more hardy staples that can sit out on a farm stand for longer do better. for us. And so we've kind of like over the course of the years refined what it is that we're growing. And every year we try something new. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so like remaining flexible. In terms of like success from the get-go, obviously location makes a big difference for the success of a farm stand. We're lucky that we live on a paved road that has pretty good traffic, but you can adapt your marketing strategy if you're in a more remote location so that maybe it's not open every day, sun up to sundown. And so maybe you have a narrower window that's incentivizing people to come for that limited time. And maybe you have like a pop-up, another person, another business that's, sharing something at your stand to attract customers that they have and reach a broader audience. We've started stocking things from other farmers and other growers on our stand because as our stand has gained popularity, we weren't even able to keep up with production on our own. And so it was really great for us because we know a lot of farm friends, and we, as we kind of curated the vision of what it is that we wanted to market, we were able to seek out people who were doing those things well and invest in them as well. And then they're sharing the stand through their customer base. And it's just a mutually beneficial thing in terms of growing the reach and increasing the support for local growers. So that's been really great. Yeah, okay, let's see. On or till use, what does the pricing and placement of money look like on the stand? So for our farm stand, we have a locked money box, and then we also accept Venmo. And when we started, we didn't have Venmo and we just did cash, and people were so honest that they would only take what they could pay with cash that time. In my mind, I was like, oh, people will like, if they're in the neighborhood, they'll just grab what they need and they can like drop money off later. And people were so honest that they were like, oh, I only had $5. I only bought, this much stuff. And we're like, oh, take it and pay next time. They're like, oh, I couldn't do that. No. And so Venmo at the time was still pretty new. And we live kind of remote. So we don't have great reception. So we were a little bit worried about it. But when we added it, it was like about 20% of our transactions the first year were through Venmo. And now I'd say it's about 60 to 70% Venmo and the rest is cash. So that's been really helpful to be able to like allow people to buy more at one time, is having a way for them to pay. So without cash, we have like a little change cup, but we don't have like an open till. But I've been to farm stands that have open tills. So it kind of just depends on your location.
Awesome. Thank you, Ali. Oh, Stephanie, did you have something?
Yeah, I had a question that came in through direct message to me as a follow-up for Ali. And I also have a question for Penny, so I'll ask this and then I want to make a link to something that Ali said and something I know is very important to Penny. So the question that came through the chat is, what would you say is your biggest challenge with owning a farm stand? And are there any special permits that you need? And I would just say, like, for the special permits part of it, probably check with your specific, like, I don't know, state or county. But Ali, what is the biggest challenge with owning a farm stand? And then I want to pick up on a thread, Ali, that you mentioned, which is that you're sourcing products from other growers and really building those connections with other growers to be able to keep your farm stand stocked. And Penny, I know that's something that you do a lot of, is building alliances with other growers. And sourcing flowers from other growers for your flower CSA. And I'm assuming also allowing them to source from you. So I want to invite you to talk more about that alliance after we hear from Ali.
Okay, so in terms of permits and things, well, I guess the first question was the challenges. I think there's always like new challenges happening. It's kind of hard to predict them. Like we'll be having a really great streak. We'll have the farm stand fully stocked and I'll go out to check it in the morning and raccoons have visited. And I wasn't expecting that because they left everything alone for the last 2 weeks. So there's always like new things. It does require like ongoing maintenance. Of course, weather is an impact. Like if it's raining, like this past month, we've had rain a lot. It was completely dry all of September, so everything was covered in dust, and then it was raining like every other day for the last month. And I feel like we didn't have our stand open very much because our products could be affected by the weather. So there is, of course, that variability in terms of weather and pests and things like that. But we just handle those things as it comes and try to remain flexible. Yeah. In terms of permits, some of the agents that we work with specifically for our value added products is that we do produce our things in a certified kitchen. So we work with the Douglas County Health Department. Our local zoning doesn't require a permit for this type of a structure because it's at our home. But if we were at a different location, we would be required to have a farm stand permit. Our structure is temporary, meaning that it doesn't have a foundation. So that is one of the guidelines from our local zoning, is that it can't be a permanent structure. So that's a loophole that we, exist within. We also have, in our commercial kitchen, we have a scale that's certified. They don't certify the scale at our farm stand because we're not managing the transaction. So it would just be some weights and measures is who typically manages that. And then we do, we sell food items that aren't taxed, but that does depend on your location. So checking with your local agents, that would be helpful to find out for that. I do talk through all of that in our ebook if that's something that you're interested in. And then I'll pass it to Penny to talk about local alliances.
Such good information, Ali. Thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, so how I market myself is I get a group of people together and make it happen that way. So we have a thing called the Flower Gals United, and there are 10 of us flower farmers within pretty much a 20-30 mile radius of each other. And so when the florists are looking for flowers, they'll text one of us and say, hey, do you have 400 cosmos? And we'll be like, well, sure. And then we get on our text thread and we create 400 cosmos within 3 or 4 farms. So the bottom line is that through our alliance, we never have to say no. And we don't have to piecemeal out our stuff as well. So that really is helpful. And so the florists and wholesalers that are looking, they'll come to us first, honestly, because they know that it's going to be easy because we have 10 flower farmers. And if someone doesn't have cosmos at that moment, one of us pretty much in our network pretty much does. So one call or one text and they get a yes. So that's what they like about that. So alliances like that are really important because that's how you can always say yes and always make sure that you get the revenue pieces that you need. So that's just one of the alliances we belong to. Of course, I'm a member of the Wisconsin Farmers Union, and that's a fantastic alliance. And we also have a group of women called the Soil Sisters. It's female farmers that help each other. So the most important thing I can stress is that we're all small farmers, we're not big ag. So the most important thing to remember is we don't compete. So that's what people have to get over a little bit when they start creating alliances. When you're talking to 10 other flower farmers that are selling to the exact same florist that you are, you have a little trepidation, like, am I going to get that sold? And the bottom line is that it all comes down to, we all have different things at different times, and my cosmos may not be up this week and my colleagues might be. So that's what I'm trying to always that's my stump speech right now, is get in alliances, because that's how you're going to sell more of what you do. And that's why alliances I think are so important.
Could not agree more, Penny. I feel like community is just like so important among small farmers. Okay. Yes, Linda.
Just to jump in on a couple of points that Ali and Penny pointed out, it's really all about relationships. So as growers, it's our relationship with our plants and our soil and our customers. So selling to chefs, it's sort of an underground web of relationships, and that I get referred to new chefs coming into the city from other chefs that I sell to. And maintaining that and building on that is really important. There's no like place to put your name in for chefs in the city for small growers. But the other way that I distinguish myself from, say, big ag, which is pretty much commodities and small, single or very narrow groups of products for lower pricing, is creating very unique items that are highly flavorful. So chefs want flavor and they chop it up anyway. So I don't use any chemicals, no synthetic chemicals in 30 years. And I teach my clients that I cannot promise them blemish-free product, but I can promise them poison-free product. So that's how I kind of keep building that out. And the flavors are exquisite. Nutrition equals flavor. Nutrition equals health. We know that. Plants are health. Now food is medicine, and soil is human health. So it's all back to that relationship process.
Definitely. Okay. Thank you all for sharing on those points. Okay. We have a couple other questions in the chat I'm going to refer to. We'll get back to some farm stand questions here in a second. But I think a really great question that was in the chat is someone said, I'm hoping to learn more about increasing customer interest in local foods when the Walmarts of the world have a grip on folks. So like what would each of you speak to on that? Sorry.
Yeah, I think that comes back to like the importance of storytelling. Obviously, everybody has a budget that they're trying to live within, but I do my best. Well, our farm stand, we're not always there. So we have to create an experience that makes someone feel good or like gain more than just the things that they're coming to buy and keep them coming back. And hopefully we're like, when we're around, we do interact with our customers and, you know, we're engaging with people, but providing them with an experience that like lifts their whole day. That's our goal. And I do think like when people have that type of experience, which you don't get when you go to Walmart, I mean, maybe you see someone that you know that works there, but it's different than, you know, visiting a farm where the things were grown. That obviously that's going to be a different experience. So I think that that's such a huge part, and communicating, you know, I think when I stopped overthinking how I was using social media and I just started sharing like mundane things that I felt like were like no one's going to care about this, but I just like posted a video because I'm like, I got to post something. I got to get people to like hear about us. That's when people started really connecting with us. And I mean, it was like literally we'd be like on our way out. I'm like, oh, our farm stand looks cute. I'll just like take a quick video of it and post it. And those are the ones that like reach 10,000 people, which obviously they're not all able to come visit our farm stand if you're on the internet because people are all over the world connecting with you. But, you know, that's how you start to reach people and like have a more personal connection. And I think that is ultimately what's going to distinguish us from Walmart and keep people connected to you through community.
I can jump in there. One of my entry points for raising or elevating the value of local is farm tours. So I have garden clubs and state organizations, and people come for their birthdays and just have small events. A flower shop comes and sells one of their vessels and we do a flower arrangement. But in terms of taste, what I do is allow people to eat and taste flavors on the tour as we walk. So whatever is in season, because I don't have to worry about chemical residues of any kind, people get to taste as we go. And then I can educate about nutrition value and avoiding toxins in their diet and why it tastes good, and help people become native to their place, because for some reason we have gotten so terribly disconnected from our foods that it's really requiring recentering people to think about, oh, it's okay to eat from my yard or off a tree or plant a seed with my kids or whatever. Really just, I grew up on a tiny farm, and I was so naive. I thought a lot of people had had that experience, but that's not true anymore. So it's really trying to help people do that on a more personal level. I even have little enamel pans and scissors. They can go around and harvest their own salad, and then we can have a salad event.
Very fun. I just want to throw out that the issues with flowers is that a lot of people see them as a luxury. So that's another issue for us, is that everybody needs to eat, but not everyone thinks that they can do something that's good for them. So we used to sell direct just to florists when we first started out, and then the pandemic hit, and lo and behold, no more weddings. So our entire business model basically went away, and we pivoted. And what we did, honestly, is remind people of the mental health benefits of flowers. And while you're home, stuck at home, and you can't go out for a meal or you can't do this, we were literally leaving flowers in our harvest house, and people could come and pick them up. And then, of course, that's how our CSA started. But the most important thing that you have to remember is that in our business, the minute you cut a flower, it has 7 to 12 days of life left. So a zucchini can sit on the shelf for a while, or a potato can sit on the shelf for a while. So that was one of the things that I basically taught myself to begin with, which is we don't cut flowers until they're sold. So that's another big principle for us here, is that it's either a CSA, which is already pre-bought, or they're going to a florist who we know, or they're going to a wedding or an event that we know. So farm stands for a flower farm is a really bad idea. We only do it on holidays. So 4th of July, we'll put out mason jars because we know those will go. But basically everyone knows to call us, and we have that for them there. But so marketing is very different for flowers. The other thing I just want to throw out there is, if you're a vegetable farmer and you don't grow flowers, you should, because the price point on flowers is anywhere from $2 to $5 a stem. And last time I checked, zucchinis were like 25 cents a zucchini. So again, a good marketing model to add. But again, I just want to stress, don't cut them until you know where they're going, because otherwise they end up in the compost pile.
With going off of what you're saying about flowers and in the line of farm stands, I found that cutting and making bouquets on a Saturday morning was really time consuming. And so we switched to just doing sunflowers, and specifically a florist variety called Pro Cut. There's a whole series of them, and they are pollenless. So they're really great because you can bring them in the house and they're not going to make a huge mess. And every single sunflower stem I cut sold right away. Like, people love it. And it was like a thing where it's like they were coming for other things and they would grab a bunch of sunflowers. And it was so simple. Yeah, same. We sold them for like, I think $1.50 a stem, which is probably under what you could market them otherwise. But I mean, every single one sold, and it was so simple. Like, they're so easy to grow. So, and they're like a little, sunshine that you get to bring into your home. So they're great.
I would also add edible flowers are a great deal for food growers, and many people are unfamiliar with that. So when they can walk around and taste a petal or a blossom, it helps elevate those simple pleasures that look gorgeous in a salad. And the other thing I have done is we've reconstructed prairie. So there are many prairie plants, flower and seed heads and branches that I preserve. I just dry them. And I have a local florist who purchases them to put in their arrangements that sell in the city. And I did a wedding flowers for a chef, and it was all preserved specimens, no fresh flowers for the whole party. And it was gorgeous. It was a lot of fun.
And you're not going to find a beautiful selection of edible flowers at Walmart. So there's another way you can differentiate yourself from the big box.
The other thing I do is custom harvest. So you mentioned, how long a zucchini or potato can stay on the shelf. I don't have employees, so I keep looking for efficiencies, and I only harvest what I have sold. So chefs order and I custom harvest for them, as well as individuals and local buyers.
All right. Thank you all. I'm going to move us on to the next couple of questions that we have here in the chat. Our first question, or our next question, I should say, comes from Patricia, who was actually one of Ali's mentees this past season. And she has a question for Penny. She asked how you got started with your flower farm.
Before I was a farmer, I was a master gardener. So I gardened not only our little house in Madison, but our neighbor's house. And then there was an empty lot across the street, and I started a CSA for our block there. So my husband finally said, "Uncle, okay, you can go find yourself a farm somewhere." So we have this 10-acre farm just south of Madison. So I started out small and slow, and I can't stress that enough. So my first year, I made a lot of mistakes, but I did gain a lot of knowledge from the florists that tolerated me, honestly, I have to say, and the customers. They would say things like, these need to be a whole lot taller. So that's the thing I want to stress the most is the first thing I did was find out what the florists and my community wanted, what other people were growing, and also the price points. So that was the first year, is figuring that all out, and created a business plan and a business model based on that. And then, of course, I already told you COVID hit and that business model got turned on its head. And so I think you just have to go with the flow. And again, just hitting that alliance thing, I was always checking in with other growers to find out what they were growing, what they needed, what their soil would do. So slow but sure. And we also provide land here for our mentees and others in our community. So we're mentoring flower farmers all the time. So we'll have 2 or 3 people actually CSAing out of our property here. And so that's helpful too, is to have them start with I want to say safety net, but that's the wrong word. But that we have a container here that they don't have to have all that equipment and everything up front and land. And I can tell them those seeds aren't going to work in this climate, but you can try them. So anyway, so that's how I got started. And now I'm more in the phase of trying to help others not make a lot of the mistakes I made initially. And that really comes from, again, planning, business planning, talking and knowing what your soil is all about, talking to experts in the area. So, and then we also have a commercial greenhouse, and we've had a lot of issues with the greenhouses over the years. This is our 10th season. And we luckily are right next to the University of Wisconsin. So we tap in often to extension. We tap into our greenhouse experts here in Madison. So that's another resource that we've used. And I will tell you, without that resource, I would have had a couple more meltdowns than I had.
Awesome. Thank you, Penny. We have a couple more questions in the chat. I think we have time for about 2 to 3 more. So I think what I would like our panelists to kind of speak to next is like what are like some like specifically herb adjacent value-added products that each of you have, or like what are other value-added products that you use on your farms to kind of like bump up sales or things like that. I think the specific question was leaning towards herbs, but I would love to hear about other value-added products perhaps. Whoever wants to jump in, go ahead.
Okay, I'm happy to talk about this because we do generate income from a significant portion of our income from value-added products. If I were to give you advice on starting, I would say, do not make something that you don't use. Do not try to make a product that you don't want to use on a daily basis, or at least somewhat frequently, because you have no personal connection to that product then. And like, so we make herb salts with herbs we're growing. And for years, people have been saying, you should really make like cocktail rimming sugars and cocktail rimming salts, which is really close to what we're making. We don't drink cocktails at our house. Like, I don't even know where to start with that, even though I could look on Google and find 50 recipes for like a Bloody Mary salt. Like, I could easily find it, I could easily do it, but I don't use it. So it doesn't make sense for me to make that product. So we started making herb salts because a friend of ours who's also a farmer was making herb salts, and I wanted to carry them in our store and or on our farm stand and in our online store. And she was making them in her home kitchen. So she was like, well, actually, I can't sell them to you because I'm making them in my home kitchen and I can only sell them direct to consumers. And we're like, oh, well, we have this kitchen that we're only using for a certain window of time. Maybe we could make them for you. And she's like, why don't you just make them? I was using her product already. Why don't you just make them and buy herbs from me? And I was like, that's cool. So here I am. I didn't know I was going to be making herb salts for part of my living. But like I said, then people are like, oh, you should do this thing or you should do that. And for a while, I kind of felt like I got caught up in that. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I should like try all these things. And then it was just like not ever something that I felt really passionate about. And so we started making herb salts in 2018. And I haven't added more than like 2 other products since then. And just now, we're in the process of like working on another product line that we're hoping to launch in the spring with which is herb infused honeys. Specifically, they're called electuaries, where you're like adding dried and powdered herbs into honeys. And it's something that I got interested in because I was reading about herbs and it like came up in a book that I was reading. And then I was like, oh, I should try this. And now like my kids have their favorite electuary. So it's like, that is something that I have a personal connection to and I care about. And I've spent time using in my own kitchen, in my own home. And like moving forward, like it's something that I feel excited about. So I'm going to have this steam to be able to market that to other people. So yeah, don't sell something that you don't want to use.
Good advice. I can also just give you another value added idea, which is we sell mason jar arrangements with usually 10, 12 stems in them. And we sell them to charity groups for fundraisers. So that's another easy idea. Again, back to my philosophy, which is it has to be pre-sold before we're going to cut it. So we know that like one church group bought 40 mason jars for us for Easter. And they sold them through their youth group and they came into the church. Honestly, we delivered them and then they put them on display. And lo and behold, luckily, of course, we also had our CSA sign up happening at that time. And we got lots of business from that. So that was a marketing ploy because it looked so beautiful. And it was like, well, why wouldn't I want to do that? So, but that's a value added product that how do we get rid of all these tulips and daffodils before the deer get them? And so we created these little programs for a lot of little charities in the area. And we don't have to sell a lot because, you know, a mason jar costs not a whole lot and a bunch of flowers doesn't cost a whole lot. But the value add is that, of course, we're selling them to them, you know, for a 200% markup. So it's a great value add. So just a great idea. And even if you have flowers left over from a wedding or something like that, we'll contact a local charity and say, hey, would you guys like to have these? We'll sell them to you for 10 bucks a piece and you can sell them for 20 and make money. So again, just looking for ways to get flowers out into the world and share where our tagline is where joy blooms. So we want to make sure that we get them out there in the world and share that joy.
Well, I am always looking for value-added opportunities, but I don't have a commercial kitchen. So it's on my list. And Ali, I'll probably be reaching out to you for consultation. And I try to look at things that other people don't already have. So one thing that's real important in this region is people forage a lot. So I'm looking at using the wild edibles specifically spice bush, which is kind of an allspice substitute, and you can eat the leaves, the flowers, the immature berries, the mature berries. So I want to do a lot more with that and even propagate the plants. So that's value added for me is plant propagation. I'm part of a Grow Native program here in Missouri. But you know, it's then finding the market for it is important. So I look for things that no one else is producing. And that's why I use a lot of the wild and forageable items because that's not common in farmers markets or even my chef buyers. And edible blossom petals is something I'm looking at as a value added.
Thank you all so much for speaking on value-added products. I think I have one last question for you all, and then we're gonna start wrapping things up. A question was asked, how each of you manages like email through your businesses, like what your role is of email in your sales.
I'll jump in real fast. I'm always behind and I miss emails. So, and I just met with a marketing person who works with chefs, and she said, quit emailing. Nobody reads emails anymore. So I'm working with her to do text to chefs. So I right now I email the chefs every week, tell them what I have, and give them links to potential uses, not recipes. They don't want recipes, but I can teach them about the product through a link on the web. So now I'm going to be pivoting that to text messaging in hopes of doing a better job of reaching everybody. And an online store is on my list. My website, speaking of which, I think we were supposed to give contact information, prairiebirthdayfarm.com, is needs in great need of an update, and I'll have an online store there eventually.
Yes, panelists, if you'd like to put your contact information in the chat before we go, that way if anyone has like specific questions aimed towards any of our panelists, if you have more curiosity around Allie's farm stand, you can reach out to her. If you have any more curiosity about Penny's flower farm and all of her offerings, you can reach out directly to her. And same goes for Linda with Prairie Birthday. So like if you have any specific questions you didn't get to during our session, please feel free to reach out to any of them. Ali or Penny, would either of you like to speak to the email question before we wrap things up? I'm
do.
gonna start putting the survey information up and put the survey in the chat while we're finishing up, just as you guys talk, if that's okay.
Yeah, I do want to add to the email and kind of piggyback off of what Linda was saying is that each line of communication, be it text or email or social media, they all reach a different audience. And so you have to use them differently. For me, I don't use email that often. It's mostly just for our online store. I don't really market our farm stand through our email because we have so many customers that are shopping through our online store that come from all over the place. Depending on how you're building your email list, you can segment it to reach different people and communicate differently. That's a lot of work, and I manage everything on my own. So I'm not doing that very effectively. But I find that social media is the way that I'm able to reach most of our customers because like pictures and videos reach people and they're helping to communicate our story really effectively. And I'm doing it daily. I would be really mad if I was receiving emails from a company every day, but I do log on social media and like see their stories every day. So, I would say email is effective depending on how you want to use it. And it is effective when I'm marketing our online store. But if I'm trying to get people to our farm stand, I'm more successful reaching people through social media.
All right.
Yeah, I would just echo that. Yes, social media is our number one thing because, of course, you can imagine nobody doesn't like getting pictures of flowers. So we send out stuff all the, and actually the greatest part is that one of my WeFam interns, mentees last summer, she was all about that. So every time we would start to close up the coolers, she'd say, "Oh, no, no, picture time." So we would send out a daily, bouquet to everybody, our free of charge bouquet. So social media is definitely a way to go. And it reminds people that it isn't a luxury, it's a necessity.
I love that free bouquet of the day. That's amazing. All right, so we just have a couple minutes left with all of you. Um, and I really just want to give a hearty thank you to our panelists for speaking today and answering all of your wonderful questions. And I do want to mention our survey here real quick. A big way that we are able to secure funding and maintain funding for our Harvesting Potential mentorship program is through feedback and data. It's just kind of how the nonprofit game goes. So if you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes to fill out the survey, Stephanie put the link in the chat for that survey. If you fill it out, you'll be entered in a drawing to win one of our Stories of the Season zines that specifically Piper and Amy worked really, really hard to put out this year. It was so many partners on that project as well, but it's just such a beautiful zine, and I think it's a really, really great prize to seek after. So if that encourages you to fill the survey out, I really hope that I'm so sorry, my alarm was going off for a second there. But yeah, other than that, thank you so, so much for being here today. We really appreciate everyone who was able to come and enjoy lunchtime with us. And yeah, thanks for being here. And go out into the world with your new knowledge. Thank you.
A big thanks to WeFam. We
Thank
love you
you.
guys. Thanks for all
Thank
your
you.
hard work and getting us all together.
Thank you.